You have to make sure the microphone is close to you, though, Chris. So you can.
Okay.
Is this on?
It's like sweaty balls.
Yeah.
You know, all of this stuff actually goes into the beginning of the episodes.
Yeah.
Just so everyone. Oh, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. Usually we just get us talking and
Yep. So, and I can see the tally light through the screen on that one, and then that one and that one. So, but yeah. Well, that's because it's a Nikon and it doesn't have the flippy screen.
yeah. He
So
had
these ones, the cheap ones, have the flippy screens.
He had the bigger screen up on top of that, and we just took it.
But you couldn't
took
see
it off.
see what was on the back because it's a clean HDMI out.
Mhm.
So I've got that little mirror, which was my
pretty sweet,
first
though.
like little selfie mirror because it didn't have the. I am gonna buy one more Z30, but
Well, those are sweet. I mean, I can't believe. I mean that. Why would you on all those little cameras?
And-
why would you have anything else?
they record until
you-
basically they'll record 2 hours or better, basically until they're out of memory,
Right.
or if they like at 4K they will overheat, and
overheat,
shut
yeah.
off.
Right.
So I learned that this summer or
Right.
this fall when we were filming
Mhm.
out in the heat. It was like 85 degrees. They shut off.
Yep.
With 4K,
Huh.
but it's an $800 camera.
Right.
Now if it was my Z9,
You'd be
Yeah, I'd be
not
upset.
happy.
Well,
that
well, it
that's-
wouldn't matter because the some bitch don't work in it
Well,
because
when
I
you-
broke
when
it.
you, when you
What?
spike it off the
Oh,
ground.
dude,
yeah,
I broke it 2 weeks after I dropped it. It's a sad story.
he didn't just drop it.
I
he
didn't drop it.
flung it, and then
I grabbed my bag and I had forgot it. I had my bag in my stand case in the back of Melanie's Tahoe, and I put it in there, and I'm like, I'm putting it in this case so I remember that it's open,
Mhm.
so I don't just fling it out. Well, we'd stopped and got groceries and ate or something, so I was in a hurry and I just grabbed the bag and pulled, and 7,200 on it, and it ripped the bayonet mount off the Z9. It broke the shutter protector or the sensor protector and the battery cover off. So, I was in a peachy mood.
I imagine.
But it didn't cost that much to fix. We're just waiting on parts. I actually just put in from Nikon today because now they have some Z9s that they'll
Right.
send back out for people that haven't been repaired.
Right.
So, and then they were doing something with offering 24 to 70 S lens or the 100 to 400. They're long
okay.
zoom lens.
Yeah.
For the month of November, we're first come first serve. You can
Nice.
try them out.
You
So
just ran
I just
out.
put it in. I go, I know it ain't
Yeah.
November yet, but you've got my Z9. I own 8 Nikon cameras. Like,
Right.
hey, let's see what
Yeah.
we can do. But so everybody, we are up here in Spencer today. We're hanging out with our friends Chris and Derek.
Mhm.
Derek and Chris, and then of course Jason and I. But welcome to Exposed, and we're just gonna shoot the shit, and we're gonna talk a little bit about some images from the Clay County Fair, and just hang out.
Yeah.
So
And I don't know if you guys want to airdrop. If you have something you can airdrop.
I can
Okay,
send.
I just have them on that drive that's
Oh.
up there. I don't know if you
I
see
see.
that drive, or
I'm sure it's
Um,
USB-C, which
I don't know if your computer will even take that.
it won't. But
Not a big
we
deal.
can maybe.
Well, do you
Oh, no, I think
do you
it will.
know what they are? Like you can. I'm just gonna send them a couple in
Not
Messenger.
offhand.
let me,
I'm just gonna have
Because
to.
I
look.
don't know if I have any of them. Oh, I bet I do. I bet they're on my.
You didn't go in and get them all favorited and ready to go. For the hour and a half I've been home to load this shit up and edit a senior session.
I just threw them on a drive, and I'm like, this will work.
Yeah, I have to. I don't even remember. I literally am gonna have to look, and I haven't picked out any favorites. So
I picked out several. How do you airdrop? I don't even know how to
I got
do
it.
that.
I got it. This will work.
I can't
perfect.
airdrop because I have a Samsung. So
I can airdrop. I have
everybody
to
else can
download 'em.
airdrop. So that's like a thing that all the kids do. Like if they have their airdrop turned on, they'll just people just randomly send
Huh.
shit.
Yeah, I'm not that technologically advanced. That
Well, we know.
I've got the technology. I just don't know how to use it.
It's spinning up now. So let's see.
You're not. Yeah. Ansel Adams over there. Film will never die.
Hey, this is like the film side of the table.
I know.
Derek's coming over
I
the
know.
dark side, but
know
I'll
what?
give it a try.
Which ones are they on?
I don't
here,
have any time.
Jason.
the fair images.
I'm looking at all the reposts of that stupid drone picture.
And I don't know how many I put.
We're not
in
going
there.
to
I
talk
put
about
in,
the stupid drone pictures.
Some portraits and
Why not?
The drone picture is a source of
It's like
contention with
15
me
images.
Yeah.
because
The,
it was original.
Combine?
Well, it was stolen, and then
Oh,
so it's got 19 or 20,000 likes on something that I didn't post. So
yeah, some of these black and whites were killer.
there
Thank
we
you.
go.
Thank you. And that the weird thing was that first day. So we continue with this recording, or are we starting over? 'Cause
No, we're
kinda
going.
like-
We're
oh,
rolling.
Okay.
We're rolling.
You know, like I texted Tim, I'd been out for like 5 hours or something like that day, and I was really struggling, like
Yeah.
creatively, like, you know, I wasn't seeing images,
Right.
and it was just putting in time at that point. And then later on that night, you know, as that light changed, and you know, for street photography, you know, that's what a lot of people don't think is, you know, you just go out and you take images. Well, what happens when there isn't images, or what happens when you don't see them images? So sometimes it's just about putting in time.
Right.
And so you might go out for 8 hours and be lucky to have one that you're happy with. Now the next time you might go out and the conditions might be perfect,
Right.
and you end up, you know, you're shooting 20, 30, 40, 50 images.
Right.
And out of them, you know, you might have 5 to 10 that you're really happy with.
Right.
And
Well, the huge thing I struggle with is I shot for the fair for a couple years. They hired me,
Mhm.
and they would go and say, "Here's a list of events that we would like you to cover."
to cover. Uh-huh.
And their times, and maybe like 6 events, one concert, you know, and then where they ride the sheep. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
button busting.
Mutton
Yeah,
busting,
you know,
yes,
and
yeah.
so which are really cool events, and I think that picture is up there.
Yeah.
And I went out there, and you do that, but the problem I have is the next year when I went to get the mutton busting or whatever it's called,
Mhm.
it feels like I've shot it before.
Right.
So I in turn sit there and say, well, I've done this. This is what I thought the first time.
Hmm.
How can I be different?
Right. Yep.
And that's probably the hardest thing for me
Mhm.
is how, you know, they've seen that image. You know, I
Yep.
could get that image again,
Right. Yeah.
but how do you get a different image?
You know where you stood, you know, the time of day you roughly took it, the lights, you know, could potentially be the same.
Right.
And I think, you know, we run into that with weddings too. You know, how do we
Well,
be
that's what I was going to say.
more
is-
creative? And
Well,
and-
especially since like Swiss Acres this year, and
Mm-hmm.
we keep talking about Swiss Acres, but we've been there
We've been there.
5 times.
yeah, we've
Right.
been there quite a few times.
And
So
I,
how do you-
I
how
have
do you-
one more.
How do you not get in a crutch
Well,
where you know, it's a bride and groom,
Right.
or most likely. And how do you get in a crutch of saying, well, I shot these people this way and this people this way?
Mhm.
You would get in a crutch and say, well, I'm going to do that again.
So we kind of do. So because it's a different client,
right. They
And-
don't know.
and the elements work.
Mhm.
That we know where the light's going to be. We
Yep.
know how this. Now we'll change up a few things.
And we'll
Like we kind of like that place was hard to light. Not anymore. We've
Yeah.
got that
We're
dialed
getting
in.
it-
We've
we're
got that
getting it
dialed
figured
in.
out.
Right.
You know, but we could walk in. So actually shooting there made shooting at the barn in Okoboji easy because it's similar to light.
Right.
So we just lit it the same and it just worked.
Right.
Because I remember when I first shot at the barn in Okoboji because there's nothing to bounce because
Right.
everything's brown.
Right.
So we did that and he'd set up his flat, his 8200s, and I set up a few video lights and then it just worked because we
Yeah.
kind of knew where stuff had to be. And
Yep.
you know, so maybe it was a good thing, but we kind of have things that we like. We like,
Yep.
you know, the pampas grass in front so you can see the
Right.
red barn in the back because
Yep.
people want to be there and they want to remember certain aspects of
Right.
the venue. So
Yeah.
we utilize those aspects of the venue.
Yeah, they're paying for that venue for a specific reason, you know, be it you know, monetary, or you know, if they have a venue like a Swiss Acres or something like that, you know, a certain aesthetic to it. So you want to make sure you include that
Right.
because, you know, some of them venues are very, very pricey. So you want to make sure you include, you know, them. But like you were saying, you know, shooting the same images, we have very specific images where I can be like, corner of the sidewalk. Yep. You know,
We just know.
we just know
Right.
like, hey, we're going to get that shot over there.
Right.
And so, you know, very specific shots you're going to get because they're just good. They're good shots. They're
Right.
good composition.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing if you go to a national park or something like that. You know,
Right.
you go to Zion National Park, you're going to shoot the Watchman.
Yeah.
You know, if you know that shot, you're going to shoot the Watchman.
Right.
And, you know, or Angel's Landing or the Narrows, you're looking for them glows. So, you know, you're going to shoot them shots
Right.
because that's what you go to them parks for as a photographer.
Right.
Now you're also trying to find, maybe a tree, maybe a certain wall.
Right.
But you're not going to find a new angle of them shots because of the amount of people that have shot that location. So, you can say I want to be unique. You're just not going to make that shot any more unique. The only thing that's changing is that sky.
Right.
So, and that to me is why I switched more from the landscape side of things to more street photography, because you just kind of get burnt out. Like you were saying, I love going to them places and I love shooting them places, but after a while, it's just, you know what them images are going to be.
Right.
And
Because you've seen it, or at least you've seen it 3
right.
or 4 times.
And that's the reason why you're going there.
Right.
You know that place because you've seen it on Instagram. You've seen it on Facebook. You've seen it, shot by Ansel Adams or anybody like that. If you're studying photography, you've seen them images before. And, if as a photographer, you're probably going there for them images. But that's the nice thing about street photography is you don't know what you're going to get. Every time you walk around that corner, is there going to be an image there? So you need to be ready. And I had one issue with when I was at the fair, I sat down at a bench because in street photography, you got 2 different styles. You've got the hunter, which is you're walking around, you're searching for images. And, when you see it, you're taking it. And then you've got the fisher, which you find a place, composition, maybe light or something like that. And then you're waiting, much like a landscape photographer is going to be. You set up for that composition, you're waiting for that light to happen. You're doing that same sort of thing. So I was sitting there on the bench talking to somebody, and all of a sudden here came one of the fair performers or whatever. He had an old style briefcase, and on the side of it, it said something like "wow" or something like that. And he literally walked right in front of me, but I was talking. And by the time I seen it, it was too late. And, you gotta be ready because them moments happen so quick. And if you're not ready, they're gone.
Yeah.
But that's also the importance of, knowing your equipment, knowing how to run that equipment, making changes very, very quick. If you want them shots, you have to be ready to get them. So
Agreed.
So what do you guys think? Like, I know I'm a pretty avid street photographer.
Oh, I'm not.
Like, so for you guys,
I'm not very good at it.
Well,
for
it's
you
just-
guys
so
going
like
into
me,
that
I mean,
scenario,
I didn't do much.
Mhm.
Like I did some, and like those are none of my images,
Right.
Because it's one of those things where you have to shift that mindset into doing it,
Mhm.
and I'm in the middle of portrait season.
right?
you
Yeah.
know, hey Tim, shift your mindset. I can't right now. No, it's working. Just leave me alone. But and that's why the images, and I sent those to you in Messenger, or I can send them via text or whatever. But I didn't get a chance to do it, and plus I'm busier than shit.
Right.
That time
Mhm.
of the year, so unfortunately I don't get to go and kind of
Experiment.
see everything, the rodeo stuff and everything else, and so that's why mine are portraits, because it's what I know, it's what I'm comfortable
Yep.
with, and it's that whole, you want to learn, you want to get out of your comfort zone a little bit to learn some things, and that's why, like, I'm working with you, like I've started shooting a little bit different on when I get time.
Mhm.
With weddings, I find it a little more abstract, with some reflections and all that other stuff.
Mhm.
So, and I kind of started going through some of the images. Like you'd sent me those 3 from the wedding last weekend.
Okay, yeah.
Because so our clients were staying at the inn, and so with their aesthetic, and she's like, I want this aesthetic in some pictures. So we started an hour early, did this stuff out at Swiss Acres, and then booked it into town for 45 minutes or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And
Just with the couple and
and did some stuff. Mel got some killer shots. You got some killer shots. I got like 2 maybe.
yeah.
But I was
But
working.
you were
I was
working
focused
on-
video.
you were on
Was that
video
in the
and-
bar?
So
area,
we
or-
never. The bar was closed.
Oh.
So we did it like in the lobby.
Okay.
And then by the piano and bookcase, and then we went up to their room. I got a little bit through there. I need to get a preview up for them.
Mhm.
And so Mel was like, you need to pull up those images. And I'm like, I don't have time right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of, I'm like, I'll have time next week.
Right. It's
Right.
things are about to slow down.
So yeah, I'm like, cause it's been 2 sessions a day
Mhm.
plus editing, so it's just been go. I have 2 more tomorrow. I'm free on Saturday as of right now, but I had 2 families hit me up, so I might stuff them in on Saturday because why not?
Mhm.
I am like I am. And
And then if you want to come out Saturday night, you can come out with me. So I threw that out if you feel like it.
where were you going?
Halloween party.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, you want me to actually go have fun and enjoy myself?
Right. I mean, you don't have to, but
I work. I enjoy it. That's how I
there
enjoy
there will
my
be
life.
there. I will be. I'll have a camera with me. Of
I want
course,
a 400. I want that new Nikon 400 4.5. I mean, I can't afford the 2.8 for $14,000.
Right? Yeah, that's an investment.
So we were watching some of the videos last night from Merton Hilmer. So he's
Yep.
and
Isn't he?
he's
Wildlife guy.
Wildlife
yeah,
guy.
he's
He's
amazing.
serious. 'Cause
Yes,
I've watched
he
a
is
few of them where he's
hardcore.
because he was in like Antarctica
yeah
or something,
we
where
watched
he's in a tent for
Oh,
days.
Yep.
yeah
And that's one thing he was saying, that he keeps his battery in his armpit.
Mhm.
keeps it warm.
Keep it warm.
Keep it
Yeah.
warm.
Yep.
I've
And
heard of that trick.
I've done that. Even going out in the woods camping, throw the batteries in the sleeping bag.
Okay.
And before getting into them, they go on the bottom of the
Right.
sleeping bag. So, you keep that charge up.
Right.
And, you start talking, getting around to, the coldest I was in a tent was 17 degrees.
Wow.
So, I mean, that will hit a battery very
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And then the one thing you need to remember too is the moisture in that tent, breathing and stuff.
Right.
That's trapping in that moisture. So, keeping your gear covered.
Yeah.
And, if there's too big of a change, that glass will fog over as well. So
Yeah.
if you get up and you're like, oh, I need to take a quick image, I think we've all been there where we go to jump out of a car in the wintertime and all of a sudden you start taking images and now your
or
lens
swim meet.
and
Yeah,
and
exactly.
if you
Jump in the
start
pool
Oh, I
and-
bet.
Yeah.
you
You're
start
like,
talking
whoa.
L glass or higher end glass where them elements are thicker, it takes a long time for them elements to either warm up or cool down.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that was always like
His
Well-
videos, or you were saying, his
Yeah.
videos are awesome.
mhm.
yeah. We watched a few of them last night. 'Cause she's like, "Where's this at?" She's like, "I want to go there." And I'm like, "Well, it was in Norway.
Yep.
It was the one in Norway." And it had never occurred to me that in some of these places, there's people that just have blinds set up for photographers just to come in and take photos.
Yeah.
And then when they were setting up, basically baiting everything, I was like, why didn't I ever think of that?
hmm
Like, I didn't even think that's a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
We could set up around here on a deer carcass or something like that. If you want to shoot eagles.
I have a
and you
blind.
wait
Like
for
I
'em to
bought a
come
blind,
in.
so I'm like, so I put in to Nikon today because I'm like, hey, hit me up with that 400. Like even if I only get it for a week,
Mhm.
I'll go sit somewhere.
Yep.
Starting next week, I can make some time just to go out and sit and just not do anything. And
Well, even talking to, any hunters in the area that, outside of hunting season, if you get to know them,
Yeah.
hey, can I, take a week in your blind or an overnight in your blind or something like that, get that late day sun or that early morning sun and just camp in the blind.
right, I've got one that I've talked to. It was two different things, but the one was to go film and photograph a hunt
Mhm.
for him.
Yeah.
At first he was like, "Can you just come out and do some photos after we get something?" I'm like, "Why don't I go out with you
Yeah.
Yep.
and just kind of hang back?"
Mhm.
And
That's a
and-
tough life
and
too.
do
I knew
that.
a couple or video guys that did that.
Mhm.
He says you want to talk about hours of nothing and
Right.
seconds of excitement.
Yep. Like
Well-
we always said in truck driving, hours of boredom interrupted by moments of sheer terror. I mean, that's truck driving right there at the
Right.
core of it.
well, look at like Ian in Lakota.
Mhm.
So he does all that stuff
The
for
hunting
Victor
videos, yeah.
Outdoors on YouTube. So they'll film for a year
Mhm.
on a hunt. The preparation and the sit
Yeah.
and the sit and the sit and the sit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and then you edit all that footage down into one little video.
Right. Well, that's the hardest part of it is
Yeah.
actually sifting through
Mhm.
everything.
Right.
So
But yeah, you had mentioned too, shifting that mindset and trying new things. And I think for a beginner photographer, somebody just getting started, that's a very important thing to do. And learning from other photographers, because I think a lot of people, they learn how to shoot and they kind of learn some basic composition and stuff like that. And then they don't know where to go from there. So they keep shooting that same way and that same thing. And, they don't realize there's so much other tricks you can do and angles to approach things. It's that narrow mindset that, everything is stand up straight and 360 degree swivel.
Right.
It's not get down low. It's not, can I get from up above, and how do I get them different angles that people aren't used to? And that's
Well-
kind of that wow factor.
Well, and that's kind of like, some of the stuff that you've shot, just seeing how you've shot things,
Mhm.
seeing how like that one image that one is the one that you did is fucking incredible. The one on the tilt-a-whirl or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, Derek.
Oh.
Those
Oh,
are
yeah,
Derek's.
That is, I know it is like, I saw that
Unbelievable.
image. I was like, oh, that
I
is
was telling-
so good.
I was talking to Joe today about those images. I said it was unbelievable.
Mhm.
I tried poorly.
well, and sometimes it's
at
fun.
producing
It's
something like
fun to
that.
watch
Right.
people do
Right.
their thing.
Yep.
Well, and I always sit there too, and and one of the shots that amazes me that I've tried over and over is, and I think that I've seen some of your stuff. You got somebody on a bike, and you have that motion blur, but they're really spot
Yep.
on focus.
Same as Derek's
and that's
picture
exactly
there.
it's the same that
I saw.
same-
I saw
right.
that.
I mean,
I'm
that's to me. I was like,
blown
I
away.
can't do that, and I've tried it on race cars,
Yep.
at the fairgrounds.
Yep.
It's
I did.
not
I tried it that night. I did some.
yeah. I don't know if
And-
it's it's the shutter
Don't-
speed and
Don't
being,
try it on that thing. Because it's not just panning.
Well, yeah,
It's
because
coming
it's
and
it's not a
going,
left
it's-
and right. It's moving that whole time.
Yeah.
So
I have no idea how you got that.
that depth of field is, I know how it's done. I've done it on film,
Yeah.
but it's not easy, and it takes
That
practice.
A9 has pretty good autofocus.
Yeah,
That helps.
Yeah.
and it takes practice. And
what do you think your shutter speed's at there? Is it like
120th or 125th?
125th. I can tell you that.
You got
right
it
now.
that sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yep.
So I
Because I was thinking 160th is where I was where I would try it.
Yep.
On the cars is like 160th. Roughly.
So the one thing that I learned, and I just watched a Peter McKinnon video because he was shooting F1, and then he was shooting a friend like on a motorcycle going by,
Mhm.
but he was shooting long, which is typically how I like to shoot.
sure.
Right.
So, but he raised the shutter speed and then just had the camera panning with it.
Yep.
So he was shooting at like 1/125th. So when I went into the racetrack at the fair, I set everything at 1/125th and then just panned with the
Mhm.
cars.
And,
And-
what millimeter were you at? So you have that
So-
compression.
50. So I was at 50.
Okay.
I tried an 85 and I didn't like how it was.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I was in the wrong corner. Like if you were in the third corner of the racetrack, I think it would have been better than if I was in the fourth.
Mhm.
But they let me in. I went in, I shot, and then I was like, okay. Well, because I was attempting to go do senior pictures, but she was in the stands,
Mhm.
and it was kind of a pain in the ass to get her to come back down,
Mhm.
even though her uncle was racing. So I just got some in there. I was like, "Did you get them?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just,
You
taking
got
pictures
you got
of
some in the
cars."
can, and you're good.
Well, and I just tried it. It was one thing I want to try. Yes, I got some sharp. I didn't really go through them. I
Mhm.
just went through the portraits
Mhm.
because, the portraits are something that I want to share because it's my wheelhouse. So I want people to see,
Yeah.
Right.
and it's just like if I was shooting rodeo or anything else like that, it's something that I want to
Yeah.
show off to people. So, but yeah, I'd love to look through and just kind of talk about everybody's images.
Yeah. See, I love this image too. This is the kind of
That's-
stuff that
Mhm.
That is layered up.
Yeah.
is in my wheelhouse as far as
Yeah, you got the framing and then the sub framing there.
Right.
So with them layers, that's drawing that eye in. And now, like, my one nitpick on this image, and Tim will know it the second I say it, is the roof line at the top being just a little off skew.
sure.
Like,
And I love that it's that way, so it bothers you.
Well,
What
but,
about the bottom of the window?
but everything else is
Yeah.
I guess the bottom of the window is straight.
The
Isn't
roof
it?
line is
Pick your poison.
I couldn't
You want-
I couldn't quite see that because his head was in the way. But
Oh, we're,
Yeah,
we're
it's-
arguing over half a degree now. Oh, this is what we're doing today.
Yeah. See, and that I was going to show. I'll show a quick image in comparison to that. Is
Mhm.
this, which is kind of similar with the framing,
Uh-huh.
But I enjoy that kind of photography.
right, yeah,
I know the people are really little, where it'd have been a lot better if it was. But I'm a sucker for leading lines.
absolutely.
Huge sucker for that.
Mhm.
So
Any-
when I see that stuff all the time, I really
Mhm.
it draws me out to take a photo more than almost anything else.
Right.
Hmm.
Well, I think too, like as photographers, we're responsible for everything in that frame. So you're constantly looking for, how do I direct, and that's the difference between taking a picture and making a picture. You're looking for them type of elements. How do I get that person's eye to go to where I want it to? What's distracting, what's not distracting. I think that's what separates, the beginner from the pro, where you start working your way through them images,
Right.
where you're constantly thinking about that. Even when we were judging some images for the fair, one of the helpers, I was showing her different elements. She said, "You're really looking at everything, aren't you?" And I said, "You need to be." Because, if you're focused on, say, this one person way off in the distance, and, you're so fixated on them, you take that image, and now when you're looking at that image, you're only seeing that person because that was your focus. Where somebody else is going, where am I looking? And, then you get lost in everything else that's going on.
Right.
Where an image like this, you know exactly where your eye is going. There's no question that your eye is getting pulled through that image with that, the framing and the subframing in there.
Yep.
Is that yours, Chris?
What?
Is that yours?
No, these are Derek's.
Oh, it's Derek's. Okay. I know her.
I've met her before.
I've seen her. I ran into her at the bridal shop. the
I
other
heard
day.
about that.
She's
I
like,
heard about
I
that.
thought she was. I heard your voice.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, she was telling me about that, and you were like, "What?"
yeah. I
And
was
she's
like, hey.
I've only met him once. But she goes, "Well, visually impaired, so
Yeah.
like the other senses kick up."
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the color of her hair, really,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
well, it because she just had it colored like that red burgundy
Yeah.
auburn color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the sunlight behind it just made it just
Yep.
burst out.
You got the contrasting color, so that red just pops.
Well, then you got the yellow behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool photo.
And just
I'm just
the
not terribly
candid,
comfortable with street photography, so I thought,
Right,
she'll let
yeah.
me take her picture.
She'll let
I
you.
can feel comfortable
but
with her.
that's
so I'll
but
take
that's
that.
how you get comfortable of it. A lot of what I started and cut my teeth on, and I still do to this day, going to fairs or something like that. But if you go to a rodeo, areas where people are used to getting their photos, that's how you step your way into it.
I'm good at
Like-
an event. Like if it was a rodeo, like
Mhm. Yeah.
the people.
Even some of the
Yeah, because you're shooting,
I'll do sports all the time.
sports
That's-
and,
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
stuff I'm
like
fine.
that.
I'm more comfortable now standing by the sidelines, and
Yeah.
I feel comfortable there.
But now
shooting
you-
people on the side,
Yep.
that gets a little.
But now you switch things up too. Like we've talked, you start shooting the people on the sidelines. And then maybe you start shooting the people in the stands a little bit. And you start including a little bit more and a little bit more. And before you know, you're not so afraid to start taking people's pictures on the street. But the difference between, the people that were doing street photography in the 50s and 60s compared to what they are now is everybody's got a cell phone. And so many people want to be malicious when they're taking that photo. I think we've all seen the, pictures and videos of somebody maybe not looking respectful, people taking pictures of homeless, which is, in a lot of the street photography community is like, you don't do that. That's, you don't punch
A
down.
little bit exploitive.
Yeah, you don't punch down. And, you're not, I never want somebody to look at any photo I ever took of them and feel bad about themselves. Them pictures just don't see the light of day. Somebody making some weird expression that is going to make them feel bad about themselves. I don't want to put that image out there.
Well, that's-
Now shooting sports with like high school boys, they're tough and gruff, and they're in it, and those look okay. And then but some of the girls, I tend to be a little more.
a little more choosy on what you.
Yeah, I mean, if the muscles are all flexing,
Right.
doesn't maybe not
Well,
so
and-
flattering or.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think girls in general, they're way more. Every time I take a photo of my daughter, she goes, "Can I see it?"
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because she'll be the first critic.
Yeah.
and they look at things I'm not looking at.
Right.
I'm looking at focus.
Yeah.
How's background? how's
Right,
framing,
yeah.
And they're like, "Well, did my hair look bad? Can you see my extensions?" I mean, they're. I don't even know what you're talking about, but no.
Right.
But they're also so used to in our social media, life that
Right.
everybody's living, they're seeing these perfect models and the photoshopping that gets done and skin touch up. And, so they're constantly comparing themselves
Yeah.
to everything else where you might see, okay, she's got beautiful flowing hair. She's got, eyes that really pop or, she's doing something and you're seeing that, but she's seeing them flaws.
Mhm.
And, so it's also being a photographer is, putting it's that empathy, aspect of it. If I was that person, would I want this photo out there? And I've had some good photos where I'm like, I like it, but I don't think they would like it. So it gets deleted. So.
This is it. This is the winning image.
Yep.
I don't even know.
I don't know about that,
Listen, Mr. Low Self Confidence.
Yeah.
Like you are way more incredible than you give yourself credit
Yeah.
for, and this image is absolutely
Right.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is a professional photo.
Yeah. This should be in the fair next year. For sure.
Oh well, we have a pro class. I just have to organize it.
Right. Yep.
That's awesome.
So Dana said
There's
that
gonna
she,
be one.
So she said, and I go, well, we have to figure out how to do it so we don't have too many
Right.
because we can't take away from the amateurs.
Right.
So, and one of the things that maybe we brought up was like you could actually maybe have a time to go speak for 15 minutes
Right.
or whatever and
Mhm.
explain some things. But, and I told her, I go, well, we limit it to 2,
Sure.
and it has, we figure out some sort of like. We can pick out like 4 categories and then you can put 2 images in and we
Right.
have to limit it.
Right.
But she goes, well, you're in charge of it then if you want. Because I've been going, where's, and she goes, well, who's going to judge it? I go, you guys are. And she's like, well, we don't know anything. I said, good, just pick a picture you like.
Right,
And tell us
yeah.
what you like about it
That's
or what
right.
you don't like about it.
Because that's a lot of what the
'Cause-
pro stuff really
well,
is.
Well, that's
It's-
what I say. I always say too. There's a lot of stuff in there that people at the fair take great photos.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the photos in there, you're like, how long did you take?
Right.
To do that.
Yeah,
you know?
there's professional work in there.
Yeah,
there's
you bet.
there's good quality work. But what a lot of people don't understand is all them judges, they're all looking for very different things.
Mhm.
Even, we take the 2 of us, you might have more of a connection to a certain image because, maybe it's an image of a dog. It reminds me of a
Sure.
dog that you used to have,
Sure.
or there's some type of memory that you got connected to it.
Right.
And, maybe I'm more, something else.
Right.
Photography in general is very, very subjective. And contests are that same way. I've entered some big name contests and I won some stuff. And then there's other times where I thought my image should at least make it in and it didn't.
Yep.
And
Well, I know after I walked through the photo barn,
Mhm.
there was images that should have made it to
Did-
the main
to the
table
main, right. And didn't
that
make
did
it.
not.
Yeah.
At
'Cause
the fair here.
Yeah. Because there was images I'm like, why didn't I see this? And I know you even called me and you're like, have you seen some of the images yet? And they're like, why didn't we see some of these? Because some of them were. And so if anybody's hearing this thinking that, they didn't put out good enough work in it, it didn't make it to that second round. Like there's some stuff that was very capable of making that second round, if not becoming one of the top images.
Right. Because I know I was very adamant about what, I saw the one image that I wanted to win and I was like, I'm willing to fight for that.
Yep.
And I did.
Mhm.
And I did. But there was also some images. I'm like, how did it make it here?
Right.
It's not that it was a terrible image, but it just wasn't worthy of
Right.
being like considered best of show.
Right.
But like that, yeah, I got,
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got
you
nothing on
take
that.
well. That's what I would say is I think that Derek's image is you go have somebody go try to produce that.
Right.
Go ahead.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Well,
It's tough to do.
And that's the whole thing like that we've all talked about is that I shoot different than you and
Yeah.
you and you. And
Mhm.
I think that's why we all work so well, like just shooting and
Right.
shit
Right.
because we all do different
Well,
things.
and-
Like,
Right. And I like watching how people do it.
Absolutely.
That means I'm going to copy you. That's the one I'd run into a few photographers in the past. And I think that's why I'd had initial hesitation of even getting together, when we first did, because, I don't want to deal with this competitive.
right. Well, look, okay, just from our initial conversation,
Right.
and then it was, oh, I don't really have the time,
Right.
and it was, and I know Joe did not want me in the building,
Sure.
and that's okay. Like, I totally get it, and it's even for me, it's hard to do the community over competition bullshit,
Mhm.
and there's time because there's a lot of people that ask, well, do you guys get along with the other photographers? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because I like me, I stay in my lane, and I I don't go to poach other people's clients or
Mhm.
anything else like that. Now I know, like I've had my clients go to other people for things, and
Mhm.
I'm not saying that I don't get butthurt
Right.
about it, but sometimes they offer something that I don't, or they're better at other things than I am, and I'm
Mhm.
okay with it. Like as I've grown and as I've learned, I'm like, you know what, I'm okay with that.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, that's the way I was always. I'll be the first to admit. I'll tell people I'm not very good at that.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't shame me to not be good at that
Mhm.
because I spend so much effort at something else.
Right.
But all I can do is every day you get up and you go try those things.
Right.
And if you don't try them, you're never going to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
If you this thing with street photography, and I think it's the same with you, Derek. I struggle with being uncomfortable, almost more uncomfortable than the person getting their photo taken.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you still know you have to produce
Do you know how
something.
long it took me when I looked through a lens to take a person's photo to look at their eyes?
Mhm.
When that's what you should be looking at is their eyes. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't look at their eyes because even though they couldn't see my eye, not looking at their eyes, but that was a big hurdle for me.
Right.
And then I would check focus on, chimping or whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, their eyes aren't in focus, Well, it took a long time for me
Right.
to figure that out with taking people's portraits. And that's why I love taking even my family, I love taking portraits, Derek, like your photo of your daughter when they're not looking,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because that's when the natural person that's inside there comes out,
Right.
rather when you say, oh, can you smile for me or take a picture?
Right.
Can I take your picture?
Mhm.
So, but it's very interesting, how we all shoot so differently and we are different.
Mhm. But that goes to show, we've had that talk about, gear and stuff like that. And gear does matter to a certain extent. But for a photographer, the best thing, for any one of us is what's in here.
Yeah.
And, the way that you see the world and the way you've experienced the world.
Right.
And, because, there are people that are more timid. Tim's more of a, I'm going to go out and I'm going
Right.
to,
Right. But I think-
attention's on me, and when we work together, it's almost like a fire and ice type of a thing. I am the cooler head and he is
entertainer.
the,
Yeah. But I think that's great. I think that when you go in, if you go into any situation, so let's say I hire you to do some construction, or if I hire you to do photography or whatever, you don't want to come and have a guy go, well, oh gosh, where should we go? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where, that's the first thing I think that you need to understand if you're going to be a portrait photographer. I guess I'm not that assertive,
Mhm.
and I think that you need that.
And it's so the biggest thing, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts, is that people will hire me and they're like, where do you want to go? And I'm like, where do you want to go?
Sure.
right.
And they're like, well, I just pick some place. And I'm like, is there any place that has any sort of meaning
Right.
first?
Mhm.
And then is there anything that you like? What do you like? Do you like trees and grass? Do you like cityscapes? Do you like streets? Do you like,
Mhm.
so I have to ask some of those questions, and then I just have to jump into my bank of locations, be like,
Right.
all right, we got to go here. And that gets back to the one session that I did in July. She's like, I have a Jeep. I want it on a beach.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, okay. Are we going to Florida or like, where are we
Right.
going?
Road trip.
But there's one beach that I can get to legally. And so that's where we went.
Mhm.
And it was covered in carp.
Right.
But she loved it, right? And I,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
I parked the Jeep out there. I had to put it in 4-wheel drive to try not to get completely stuck.
Mhm.
I had the tow guide's number on speed dial just in case I did, and it worked out. It worked out just fine. But this, and then we haven't really talked about this, but this, there's nothing to say, like the blur, the motion, everything about that image is just incredible.
It's great.
Yeah.
The expressions
And the holding on.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Right.
to me, the holding the two girls just holding on to me, reminds me of being a kid.
right.
right.
Yeah, because any one of us has been on that ride. We know what that feeling is.
Oh yeah.
You're holding on to that bar, you're laughing, that hair's moving.
Well, and they're
And-
actually having a good time. Some
Yeah.
of those kids are
I
scared
would-
to
yeah,
death.
right,
out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I only
it's-
took it because I knew the girl.
Oh,
So it was okay. I knew her mom. I talked to
Yeah.
her mom that night. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great image.
Yeah.
It's well executed, and I actually have a picture of you set up taking this image.
Okay.
So-
I did one like this up at Arnold's Park when I had to
Okay.
scramble with my boys
cool.
Gotcha.
and put it in the fair a
Oh,
few years
awesome.
ago. It didn't win.
It did.
Dude, some of the
But it was during the day, so it was a completely different image, but same idea.
right.
And I didn't take many of the models we had. It was more fun just watching you guys work with them. You know, I didn't feel
Yeah,
like I
I-
needed to get in there, but I did take one and just edited just
Yeah.
the heck of it.
Mhm.
Well, and that's just, I mean, you got good lines. I mean, the lighting's placed good.
I more just played around with color grading, which I had never really done before.
Right.
And so the only reason I included that picture was because I practiced with that a little bit and was
Right,
happy
yeah.
with kind of
Right.
how it turned out.
Yeah.
But that's trying new things, and that's how I got started into a lot of my portraiture, as working with Tim, going to the studio and trying some, hey, we're gonna go up here and play around. You want to come? Yeah. I've taken a lot of pictures of his daughter and stuff like that, which has worked out for me really well. I don't have any kids that I can,
Mhm.
practice portraiture on or anything like that. So, an opportunity like that works out for me exceptionally well. And then the nice thing is Addison as well is, I mean, she's model material. Like, she knows what she's doing. You can just like do your thing.
She makes it
And
easy.
she
Yeah.
makes it easy.
Not every time.
Not every time, but a lot of times she makes it very easy.
Because there's times where she's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, just your thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's, I don't know. Just tell me. I'm like, okay, so it's one of those days.
Right. Yeah.
And McKenna used to be a lot more difficult, and now she's gotten to where she actually likes it.
Mhm.
Kylie, the only time she likes it is if her
I like
daughter's,
that one.
if
Daughter's in it.
Amara's involved.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's
Few where I'm at here.
you're in Spencer.
These are
This is Jason.
Yep. This is mine.
I can just tell by the file name.
Yeah, you've seen them files a time or two.
Probably not as much as you. You do all the editing.
Yeah, I see quite a bit of files anymore.
I've got a lot of really shitty pictures from that wedding in the hotel, just so you know.
Oh, you looked through them already?
I scrolled through them yesterday. I'm like, what was I thinking on some of these things?
But that's also trying things, seeing what works, what don't. And then that's putting that in your memory bank. You set up and you're like, no, I've tried this before. It's no sense in even clicking the button.
The thing that I struggled with the most was the height difference. And they had it nailed for a lot of things. And they'd legit been practicing like first kiss and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there was at least a foot or better difference.
I think 1.5 feet probably.
Right.
Like, there's a very big difference.
so.
But as far as a couple went, they were so
Oh, they were
great
great.
together.
Well, they love pictures together too.
Yeah.
So, and it's always fun to have a couple that does that. Like the Lauren and Mark from when we did the Okoboji one.
Okay.
Like they wanted images,
Mhm.
so they practiced the images.
Right.
And I'd asked him when I was doing some photos of him about that. I said, so tell me, he's like, well, she likes to have pictures done,
Mhm.
and so I had to learn how to look good in pictures
Right.
and work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always fun, but we're way off subject here. So it's Jason's because it's in black and white.
Yeah, I think like all my pictures here in black and white.
No,
I love black and white, especially for any type of street documentary type of stuff. And I read some quotes here earlier this week, and I think I put them in my phone. But it really doesn't matter. Anytime I get a new idea, I'm always throwing it in my little memory bank here. So the pictures you want to see in 20 years, or the pictures you want to see in 20 years, you have to shoot them now. A lot of people want pictures of the grandparents and stuff like that, but they don't take the time to shoot them. And it's the same way with street and documentary type of a thing is, you see them pictures that are really popular now. They're the ones in the 50s and the 60s and even the 70s. And people are like, oh, these are amazing photos. Well, back then they maybe weren't so amazing. But them trends are gone. Them cars are gone. That way of life is gone.
Right.
And the things that we have now that we're taking for granted, 20 years from now, what's it going to be?
right.
Is everything going to be electric vehicles? Is 50 years from now, they're going to be talking about, I can't believe people had, big, huge pickups that were getting 12 miles a gallon or something like that. We don't know what it's going to be. Look at, our parents and the changes they went through. Or if you step back even further, the camera technology, people have been shooting pictures for 200 years, and but it wasn't that great of a technology. So what's a fair going to be in 20 years? And the thing I liked about this image that drew me to this is every coin machine had two people at it, and everybody in the picture, including the people up running the booth, is everybody had their back to me. And so it was just one of them deals, it stuck out to me. And so, yeah, I ended up taking it. The thing that I wish, the kids on the right side, I almost wish it was a girl on the left side too. So it was, everything was even out.
Just Photoshop it.
I won't do that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how, for one, and two, I just wouldn't do it.
Right.
So
I love this picture.
I love this.
Yeah, I do too.
And I took 2 frames, and this was my favorite of the 2, because it's, especially any dad that maybe has a girl or anything like that, it's them bonding over something. And, without being able to see a face, this could be anybody and their little daughter. It's something that invokes, a thought or a memory or something like that. And that's the one thing that I really enjoy about photography.
I love this picture too.
Yeah.
And it's I assume she's on her phone,
Yep.
which is so iconic.
Well, you take the classic cowboy, and then the new technology, and the other thing that drew me to this is everything is you got the leading line leading up to her. I seen her sitting on the fence. There's some boys on the other side. I think I rattled off 3 frames here all together, and I just put my camera down on that post. And I just kind of like looked at the back viewfinder and I'd take an image. And I didn't want what they call bruise the scene. I didn't want anybody to see that, I took that image. Or even on the last one, if she would have looked at me, where I could have grabbed that last one where she would have made eye contact, that would have been pretty good too. But the other thing I like about it is all the leading lines going to it. Left, right. You got the contrast from the sun coming through the trees. The light beams are coming towards her, and then even the handrails of the grandstand are coming down. And it's some little details like that you're constantly looking for.
Yep.
And like we said, if you're just focusing on one specific subject, you forget about everything else in there. And this image could have been made a little bit better if there was a horse running on the left side or something like that. Maybe help balance it out a little bit more, but that's just nitpicking, and always wanting to improve. So
This is cool.
The motion.
This is another one, 1/25th of a second. That's my shutter speed. That's 1/25th and 2/50th. That's what I shoot at 95% of my images. And I've seen a lot of chat rooms and stuff like that. You want to chime in and say something, but it's just going to start an argument. And people are like, you got to shoot at 800th of a second, and you got to freeze motion, and everything's got to be tack sharp. And you will very rarely find me above 1/250th of a second. If I am, it's because it's bright daylight and I just can't. I don't have an ND or something like that.
Right.
But I always keep an ND in my bag, so if I want to slow that shutter down, I can. And
You want some more coffee? Are you done?
another thing with this image too is it's all the leading lines from the bars. It's the layering. And just the overall dynamic of the image, leading everything right back into that central point. So,
I like the foreground sharpen and focus, and the motion in the background. Just the contrast of the two.
Yep.
This is the main thing that I see.
And it's one of them deals too. When looking at composition, it's filling that frame. Like I was saying earlier, directing the eyes where you want them to go. What are you trying to say? What are you wanting people to look at? This is one of them images where exactly where them lines are telling you to go without thinking about it. As well as, if this is shot, in color or processed in color, That bandana on the railing was red.
Oh,
The
yeah.
railings themselves were red. Another
Super
thing was
overpowering.
it just became overpowering to the scene. And that's the one thing I like about black and white is it cuts out that distraction. And when you're shooting with color, you got to be well aware of what that color is doing to that scene. And so yeah.
I think for all these images at the fair, I think black and white states it's a timeless classic to me
Right.
because it's always been and probably most likely always will be.
Always will be.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And I don't do a ton of black and white. I
Yeah.
should do more. And Melanie's always on me about it.
Right.
And just like with editing, I go, you edit everything in color because it can always go to black and white.
Right.
Right.
But I don't ever want a client coming back going, I need that.
I need that in color.
Because I've had it happen.
Yep.
Sure.
And so
And
I'm
I've
like,
done
never-
that
I'm
too.
like-
And now
I'm like,
I just
never again.
if there's an image where I'm like, this looks so much better in black and white, then I will do it in black and white just for they'll be like, ooh, this does look really good.
Mhm.
But otherwise, now I do the same thing.
A lot
Almost
of
everything's
times
just
I'll
delivered in
duplicate
color.
it
Mhm.
and
Yep.
leave it in color, but then because I'll choose what I think is going to be good in black and white,
Yep.
and then they can pick. I
And
guess.
that's what I do too. I just duplicate it so they get it in color, but then it's
they're
like,
oh.
hey, check this out in black and white too, because that's usually my hint is like, hey, it looks better in black and white. You're gonna like it here.
I do that a lot.
When you
with
get the lighting
sports,
right,
Yeah.
a black and white works.
Right.
And then color's best when it's part of the story. If it's
Absolutely, yeah.
a little pop of color and against a contrast something.
Mhm.
But
Where there's DJ lights, then it's better to go black and white.
Right. Or
Yeah.
concerts.
Concerts,
that
sometimes the white
in a-
balance is so
because your
Yeah.
lighting's cool. And when you
Mhm.
get the lighting right, that's when.
Yep.
you see-
when the lighting's good. Now, I've shot some bigger concerts, and I've shot some where they got 4 little can lights, and they're going with the traditional lights, and there's nothing. They're not adding to the show; it's just adding light,
It's just adding.
and that's all it is. And luckily, I've had the opportunity to work with some bigger name acts or some acts that really pay attention to the lighting and how much that presentation actually adds to the show. And I think a lot of bands could learn from a photographer and talking to a photographer
There's a lot of things that could.
because of how much it could improve their show.
Just the aesthetics of
Absolutely.
so many things.
Mhm. To me, if you're putting on live music, you're putting on a show. And
You're an
that
enter-
show
you're an
needs to
entertainer.
say,
Yeah.
Right.
we're there, we're the entertainment, look at us.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just a jukebox in the corner.
Right.
And
Well, there's plenty of those too.
there's plenty of those too.
Are we going through all yours? Do you just bring them all? You just-
I
just
brought
the whole
I
hard
think
drive?
I got like 15 of them.
Jeez,
So
If there's
wanna-
ones you want me to, I'm just going through them.
I just loaded a bunch
No,
on
I-
there.
I
I,
really
didn't know
like
how
this.
much
I
time.
like
This
how
okay. This is really
Yeah,
cool though.
I love how this fills the
and
frame.
having that motion.
Yep.
That motion right there, and then I love Grandma back
Yeah,
there.
looking at the menu.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me too.
But this is that fishing technique. This is set up on a tripod and sitting waiting.
Right.
I think I sat in this spot for 45 minutes.
Wow.
And
And the kid with the candy apple.
that adds to it. Without
With-
that, this
with-
image
it
wasn't
just-
that good.
Right. Just so that subtlety to me is like, I don't know. That's pretty sweet.
And where it was framed, and
Yeah.
a lot of that boils down to luck. And you put yourself in a position to get lucky,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of what it is. But few people would have that patience to stand there that long.
I would love to do a ND filter ultra long exposure.
Let me know when. I've got a 10 and a 20. Stop.
Oh,
Because
that
then-
20 is
That 20
forever.
will make things disappear.
I've got a 10 stop, but yeah, just to make an image where there's because that would eliminate a lot of your emotion, a lot of your people.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not completely, but
Mhm.
it'd be fun to have like a busy scene,
yeah.
but take a photo where there's nobody in there and have someone like, wait a minute, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
That place is always so busy. How would you?
Yeah, and there's places
Like an impossible photo type.
We've done that at weddings. Like
well,
Tim.
but he's talking about like the whatever that thing is in Chicago, the big chrome,
Oh, the bean?
the bean.
Yeah.
Oh,
Millennium.
yeah.
You shoot it super long, and then all the people just disappear.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, or do something at the Arnold's Park or something. Like nobody's ever seen it dead midday in the summer, but you can
Right.
make the picture look that way.
And that's a lot of times what you're using some of them filters for. You're in areas where you can't get that photo without people there. And I've done that in the Narrows too, where you got to rattle off 5 images, and you might have to merge some of them together to get rid of a person here or there. I mean, that's just what you have to do.
Does he have cotton candy?
Yeah,
in a
he's got
cage?
cotton candy
in a
in a
trap.
cage.
I guess I saw that picture and I didn't really pay any attention to it.
It's like, what is going on?
He live trapped it.
Yeah,
Honey, what'd you buy at the fair? I bought a live trap.
Bought a live trap and
And
cotton,
cotton
candy.
I maybe he was out hunting. He's in the Midway with a live
He
trap.
could have been. He could have been.
Just the cotton candy rolled in.
Maybe the cotton candy's the bait. I don't know.
It could be.
Yeah, this was
I
one
got some
of
cotton
them,
candy for you,
like,
honey. Why don't you go in there and get it?
I wish the reflection on the left side, I
Oh.
believe it is. I wish I'd have got him a little bit better in that, but it was the same thing. It was quick. I didn't want to bruise the scene because the second he looked at me, it would have ruined the shot. And yeah, this was shot with 85, which I typically don't do any of my street photography with that. It's a 50 or a 35, and now I just added a 24.
Yeah.
So I've been using that as well. But I mean, it was just something different to try, and it worked out well in this scenario. And this is that one of Derek that I took. And I got him framed. I
Oh,
moved
that's sweet.
around, so
Yeah,
I had
that's
him
cool.
framed in that area. So it just brought that
There's
that
creepy Derek
attention
in the
to
background
him.
of the camera.
So
Yeah.
it's just framing and
Call the
subframing.
cops.
This is something that I use all the time. I use it in wedding photography. I use it in street photography. I'm always looking at how I can, frame different elements and draw that interest into the photo.
Nobody's calling the cops on Derek because he has a big camera.
He's got a big,
It's
Well-
when you have the little ones that everybody considers you creepy. So
they
you
get
just need,
nervous.
That Sigma lens is not discreet. I'll
well,
say that.
Yeah, because that was what, the 135,
It's a 105.
105.
1.4.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that thing is massive because I have the 135, and it's not as big as
Right.
the 105 because
Yeah.
it's that 1.4.
It's a 105 millimeter lens filter.
That's massive.
That's big.
Seen that kid before?
See, and then if you go
Yeah, she's natural.
if you go with NDs, you can actually get one that covers the sensor. So instead of trying to buy,
Yeah, there's
100,
ones that you can just
yeah, and then you just click
Does
that
it
sucker
slide
in
into
there.
the lens
No,
or did,
well,
No,
there's-
it goes
there's
right
it
between
goes-
the lens and
It goes like in the body.
Yep.
wow.
I guess I've seen them, but
Yeah, a lot of YouTubers are now, that's kind of like the fad. A lot of them are getting them because they're using flash and NDs to darken up the sky. And
so there's a lot to that, and
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's got high speed sync and all their flashes, but your
Mhm.
flash works better at
At
1/200
full
or
power.
slower,
Sure.
right? So it has more power than
Right.
it does at 1/8000, even though you have the high speed sync that will work. And I use the shit out of it.
Yep.
But
When-
I it had never crossed my mind until I took a class about it
Mhm.
on one of my senior classes that I took.
Hmm.
And I was like, I never thought about that.
there is a difference too when you compare the images and high speed
And-
sync. with
Because
an
I
ND.
was in one of the photography groups, somebody was talking about that.
Mhm.
I never would have thought. Never would have thought of that.
So the battery power, like if you're on a cordless flash, like 8200, 8600, like I'm usually on one of them,
Mhm.
the battery power lasts longer. It uses less juice to shoot, at 1/200 than it does at 1/8000 because it's pulsing.
Mhm.
So that's why if you go to high speed
but
sync,
it can't pulse as strong.
right?
So
So
you get more light.
if you
time, but
go to
less
like
light
1/4000th and you rattle off let's say you're at 1/16th power on an 8600, which can handle that real well, you rattle off 3 frames and they will all be exposed different
Mhm.
because the flash can only go so fast.
Fast,
It can
right.
only keep up so much. And I had never, I guess I'd seen it, but I never knew why
Mhm.
until I took that class. Right. So, it's always, there's always more to learn, dude. I'm a juvenile.
And don't forget to take it out of high speed sync.
Right.
I
Yeah.
did that last week. I was taking pictures of a lady and I had to have it because she was backlit with it. And then we moved positions and I didn't take it out of high speed sync. And I'm like,
Mhm.
why is this not working? And I was
See, mine will
starting to
automatically-
sweat, trying not to look
Mine
like.
will go. It doesn't. It will stop at 1/200th unless I have high speed sync turned on my controller. But if I drop back down, it automatically still works. But I did learn, because I had turned rear curtain sync on.
Mm.
It will not shoot over 1/200.
Yep.
No matter what you do. I did learn that because I was doing seniors, and I'm like, it was like a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. I'm like, why on earth can I? And I'm like, something's broke. I switched batteries. I get home, and so I just made it work. I just adjust my f-stop, so I just didn't have it quite as shallow as a depth of field as I wanted. And I got home and I got the book out, and I'm looking through. I'm like, what does this mean? Because the icon on the controller had changed. And I'm like, what does this mean? So I'm going through, and it's like, oh. And so then I go and I switch the camera back to just fill flash.
Right.
Goes away. High speed syncs back up on there.
Good to go.
I was like, well.
Well, it's
Learn
interesting
something new.
because the new Fuji camera or the Fuji cameras, you can pick all these different options now. And it kind of it's like so confusing.
Because you got the XH2, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like,
Oh, you did?
yeah.
Oh,
And it's
I gotta
like,
check that out.
I don't understand. I mean, that you can pick, there's like 5 or 6 different settings. And I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
Right.
because I think there's 4 on Nikon.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think it's probably that, but it's,
Well, then with the X100, it's got the leaf shutter in it, the X100V.
Right. So
You can run that.
And internal ND filter.
Yeah,
Right.
and the internal.
See, I need
so
one of
you
those.
can run that thing up.
good
And
luck
that's-
finding one.
Yeah.
I know a guy that's got one.
You know,
All right. Well, there's Addison.
can you send me your images again or try?
Oh yeah. If we don't get to mine, that's okay.
The one thing
Mine are just portraits. so-
after going through these, the one thing that I wish we would have done, and I didn't think about that night because we had that flash, the AD200. I wish I would have backlit all these to get that little bit extra
so
separation.
I was going to say for what? So just have a little rim light on.
Yep,
it.
yep. Just to get that little bit more separation. It still looks good, but that's just me nitpicking the images.
Right.
That we had the equipment there. I just didn't dawn on me to use that in that scenario. But I love all these. I like the lines. I like the framing. How everything just kind of went together, and yeah, these were fun to shoot that
Yeah,
night.
they
I
were.
really enjoyed that.
That was great. They came out.
So Yeah.
None of them hated having their picture taken.
right,
so.
yeah,
Right.
they're easy to photograph.
Right.
Like it
This- technically, this was not during the fair.
This wasn't even during the fair. These are just some fair images that I threw in there.
This is when we
that
were
we don't
walking
even
around
need to
at
go
lunch.
over. But
This
yeah,
is when
this
we were
is-
walking around at lunch.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So I went around and grabbed some of these, and it was just kind of testing the area.
Right.
And this kind of fits in the aesthetic that I've started shooting a lot more now, because in small town Iowa, even big city Iowa, like street photography is very tough because you don't have the people. It's not a Chicago. It's not
Right.
a New York. It's not a Denver, Colorado, or something like that. So you're very limited on what you can shoot. So I've started shooting a lot of, architectural type of work.
Yeah.
And
And I enjoy that, and it doesn't surprise me because, of the lack of being uncomfortable shooting people,
Mhm.
but I think some of that stuff, I've taken 3 or 4 photos in Spencer that those buildings are now gone,
right.
Right.
Yep.
and they were really cool,
Mhm.
6-7 years ago.
Yep.
So,
But that goes into like what I was talking earlier on the documentary side. The images you want to see in 20 years, you need to be taking them images now.
correct.
Because there's one tree outside of outside of Newell that when I started off that first 3 years, I shot that tree all the time. That tree has since been gone. But I
Right.
got there was one photo that I always wanted to get, and I would race out there when the weather was in a certain spot. And there were so many times it was like, nope, this isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't it.
Was that the one? Is that the one that like the first one that you'd had up? Like it was in the field on that fence
Yep.
line or whatever.
Yep. And that tree is gone, and that fence line is gone. And,
So there was, I had seen, and I can't remember the guy's name. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he had shared a picture the other day of a tree in town here,
Mhm.
and I knew, like, I saw it and I knew the tree
right.
because I have a picture of that tree too, and it was before the leaves all dropped.
Mhm.
But I shot it at 600 mil,
Oh, okay.
Cool.
and he had it. He was at 200 or 400. He was closer to it, just because you can just tell. You just learn roughly what a focal length looks
Right.
like. And I commented, I'm like, that's a good looking tree. Because I remember the tree.
Mhm.
And I had actually, I've posted that tree twice. It was the same picture but edited differently.
Hmm.
So the one picture was just the natural fall color on it, and the
Mhm.
one I did a winter look to it,
Okay.
and so I have these Photoshop brushes that can add snow, and
Right.
like, and I can't even remember why I bought them. I bought them to go with something,
Uh-huh.
and like I've used them for that. Like I've never, you know, there's all these things when you're getting started.
hmm
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Mhm.
And you buy all this crap
That you don't need.
that you don't need.
I just sold a lot of that. You know, that's what I'm
Right.
talking about earlier. I'm trying to get rid of the waste that forces me to conform.
hmm
So
But that's, you know, that's the day and age that we're in is that consumerism. Like, you need this. This will make you a better photographer. This will make you a better photographer. Buy this piece of gear. And, you know,
Right.
I've got different triggers and stuff that just sit and collect dust.
Right.
That really has no value, even to most other people.
I do
It's
need a
become
400 millimeter
obsolete.
2.8.
there you go.
Well, you could try out my 300 and see how you like
I might
that.
rent one
So,
Yeah.
just to use. I don't need it all the time, but I thought about that.
we use and I've loved them is Borrow Lenses
Mhm.
out of San Francisco. I mean that's
Right.
who we've rented several
Right.
pieces of equipment that we'd only use once or twice. You know,
Right.
cameras that shoot such high frame rate.
Oh, sure.
You know, and you can rent memory cards and everything, and it's 7-day rental, so it's pretty
Right.
sweet. But-
Just have you tried the 2 to 600? It's a lot more affordable. Or you just
Yeah,
gotta
actually,
have it.
yeah, my mom has that one, and I've tried to use it, but I didn't like.
So
The
set it.
zoom ring is different.
So
than
set
the
it to a
focus.
focal length and leave it alone.
Yeah, but it's not 2.8.
At 400,
It's a
you
different
don't need-
look.
You don't need that.
It-
It
I want
is.
to. I want the look, and
Yeah,
and in
it's-
that specific example, to get the look for what I want, the pictures I want, the
Oh,
fast shutter
totally
speeds that I
understandable.
want,
Yeah.
that equipment you have to have. But
Mhm.
I don't need it all the time, and I thought, maybe if I can find a week or 2 week period where maybe there's some high school, college, boys, girls club,
Right.
soccer kids. If I can catch like 4 games at once, maybe I can get enough people to.
To chip
Hey,
in
everyone
and
pitch in a
help
little bit,
pay
help
for
offset.
the.
Or
have-
you just pull out the American Express and
Yeah,
you just think of the airline miles you'll get with it. I'm not
the divorce bill that would come after.
Nah. My wife actually, Melanie pushes me to buy more shit than I do.
Yeah, you have a very supporting wife. So
because it lets her buy whatever she wants.
right, so she keeps she's like, go ahead and get that.
She's the reason I was looking at the XH2S
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
to have,
That's
and
and I'll be honest with you. I've used the H2, XH2 for about 3 weeks now,
Mhm.
and it's very much like the GFX, 50S2.
Okay.
So all the dials went away, and I'm very interested to see the XT5 because it's going to have
Right.
the same sensor
Mhm.
that the XH2 has,
Mhm.
and I find myself fumbling
Okay.
with menus,
Right.
something
Yeah.
as simple as ISO, whereas on my other cameras, with even you can see the dial, it's on top,
Mhm.
and I'm so used to that. Now I have to look at the menus,
right.
and it's very frustrating.
Mhm.
I mean, the other day, and they've gone away and they have the C1, 2, 3, 4, so you can have quick, fast settings.
Right.
So if you switch from video to this to that,
Mhm.
and it's probably user error on most of it, but yeah, it's frustrating not being able to have the camera down here and see where I'm at.
Yeah.
Almost
Take that quick
instantaneous,
glance
yeah.
at it.
And that's why I think on some of the film stuff, I like it so much,
Mhm.
because I can look down and go, oh, that's where I'm at.
Yep.
And then I don't have to worry.
Yeah.
about
It's
that.
simple. It's shutter speed and
Yeah.
and
Which-
But it's all out in the open.
right.
Right. It's
It's,
virtually
You're not
when
having
you
to
can't
dive
find
into
it.
right.
menus.
And that's probably more of the
And-
problem I'm having is fumbling because the XH2S and the 50S2 GFS they're different.
Mhm.
So buttons are different. Where when I had 2 of something, I only had to learn it one time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, the ISO button's on top on the XH2, but it's not. You have to, or it's on the front dial. You have to and click between the aperture and the ISO, and it's frustrating.
Are them fully? Because I know all the the GFXs are like fully customizable, all the buttons.
Yes.
So if you went in and
Yes.
changed any of that, or
Yeah, and I've set up settings, fast settings for just regular, like if I was an aperture priority and you wanted an auto ISO.
Yep.
Compared to I'm going to shoot. I always start out my portraits. I always start out at ISO 100 at 5.6.
right.
And that's where I go. But yeah, it's user error most of the time, but it's just something to get used to.
Yeah, I know. I was in menus today, switching some buttons around with one button, especially now that we're implementing a lot of flash into the photography. It's that white balance. I don't know if the Nikon.
Yeah,
is
because
that
I can
way.
flip.
How are the Nikons that way? Are there?
So I customize on all the Z cameras.
Mhm.
I customize the same button for DX and FX mode.
Mhm.
Full frame and crop, and then the other one is for white balance.
Okay.
Which I don't switch a lot of when I'm doing photos.
Sure.
Because it's a raw photo, and
Right.
you can shoot it as wonky
See,
as you want.
I'm talking about the setting where when you're dialing it down for flash and dimming everything down where that subject is out, being able to switch it over so now you can see everything.
Oh, preview mode.
Preview mode, yes.
Oh.
As soon as I turn my controller on,
it switches it.
it switches.
Switch-
See
automatically.
that
See,
the GFX isn't
yeah,
that
the
way.
Fujis
You
aren't
actually
that
have
way.
to.
You have to.
And
There's a
switch it.
preview mode.
Mhm.
So like if you were at 125th, inside it looks
Mhm.
dark.
Yep.
And I see that on all the chat forums. It's like I
Mhm.
can't see my image.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't
Well,
know that it's
and
there.
I'm sure there's some things you can change on the Nikon. The
Mhm.
thing that sucks is that if you have that turned on and you're not using a flash, like you accidentally forget to shut
Right.
it off and you run outside, or if you have a speed light on the top
Mhm.
and you run outside and and that's the part of the mirrorless.
Mhm.
Like, because before when it was DSLR, you watched the meter.
Right.
You watched that meter.
Mhm.
Well, you get the mirrorless, you get lazy.
You get lazy. and
You're
not
like,
paying
well, it
so-
looks good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you check your exposure and everybody
Everything
is
is-
bright white.
Yep.
Because you
if
went from
they're
inside
yeah.
to outside.
Side,
Yeah, if they're even in there whatsoever,
Yeah.
I've had it before where you
Just
get a completely white frame,
frame,
and you're like,
yeah.
oh, you idiot. So
Yeah.
today I went through and I switched it, so now it's on a button right next to the trigger, so I can boom boom, and it's switched.
Nice.
It's ready to go.
Nice. Well, we're gonna be here till midnight if we don't
Okay.
keep going through.
I'll do. I don't have that much. I have.
I
couple
loved.
of-
I really liked the
I
image
like
of all the
this.
saddles.
and I like this because it was on film.
Mhm.
And I get so much of a thrill and feel really like I don't know what the heck I'm doing sometimes. But some of these when they do come out, I love the color and the tonality,
Absolutely.
and again it's uniform,
Mhm.
so which really I really like.
Yep.
So
There's so much texture and vibrance to this image.
Right.
And then, you got the poles in there, everything's framed in. You've got that golden hour light hitting it, which just makes that leather. I mean, it makes anything just
Right.
dance.
I
mean,
can smell that picture.
Yeah.
Like, and it's funny saying that to people. Some people get it. Some people
Yeah.
don't.
Mhm.
yeah,
Like, because you can just smell
Smell
the
it.
leather
Yeah.
in
Yep.
that.
yeah.
But this image too shows you that, the light is more important than the equipment.
Right.
And
Yeah.
no matter if this is film, digital, whatever,
Right.
you're not going to notice it so much on a screen, the differences between the film and the digital, but there definitely is a difference.
Sure.
When you're viewing them prints and
Well, if you'd have shot that on a 400 2.8, it'd have been epic.
but you would have to stand back in the
you-
parking lot to get it. So
Yeah.
Nobody else would have.
right.
The
Well,
replicating.
and I would love to buy that lens, the Nikon one, but it's $14,000.
Oh my gosh.
And so that for me, it's a pleasure lens. It's not.
Right.
It doesn't make me any money.
right.
So I already have enough money in stuff that doesn't make me any money. So it's like, ooh, I can't.
Mhm.
Building the new garage, which is now going to be this spring, just because of the sewer line stuff.
Mhm.
That's kind of taken a little bit of precedence over any equipment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we're done buying
Right.
I might buy I might buy a 400 4.5 yet this
Mhm.
year, but I need to sit down and figure out if there's anything else that we have to buy.
Right.
I mean, I actually was waiting for Nikon to come out with a new camera that wasn't a Z9, like a Z8.
Yeah.
So I had something in between because I would like to upgrade the two just the original Z6s,
Yeah.
and park them or sell them.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, that means it's time to
Switch the camera. But yeah, even me, you know, you were talking about the XT5.
Mhm.
You know, I've been waiting to see, you know, what that's going to be, because I would like to add another one to the kit for next year. I want to get something with a little bit more speed, you know,
Yeah.
since I am shooting, you know, strictly on medium format right now. But I want something with a little bit quicker autofocus,
Yeah.
some more video capabilities.
And it's all like the video or the autofocus part of it is there's three parts of a wedding day.
Mhm.
When it's like, you know, when they're coming in, when they're going out, and then
Yep.
there's the rest of it, like the medium format, the
It
time
works.
that it takes to focus is just fine.
It
Right.
works, but it's them quick deals.
Well, I agree with you. There's so many times that I think that these shots would look great on medium format. I just can't use it because I
Yep.
know that I'll miss it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there was guy even today, you know, we were shooting some stuff and it's stupid stuff, you know, but I know that just as how fast they move, you know, and
Mhm.
putting screws in and doing all this stuff. It's just like, you know,
Mhm.
that even the newer one, it's just slow.
Yep. And
So-
once you get used to some of that stuff, it does improve over time. You know, a lot of people jumped in the GFX system, especially when the 50R came out, because it was one of the first. I think the S was one of the first affordable medium format
Right.
cameras.
Right.
You know, if you wanted digital medium format just not too many years ago, you were looking at spending $40,000 on a body.
Right.
Now, granted, that is a massive sensor when you start looking
Right.
at them Hasselblads, Mamiyas, and Phase Ones. They are an incredible camera, but they are your Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and
Right.
you know, whatever you want to call it. You know, they are a very high end camera,
Yeah.
but they are big and they are slow.
Right.
And then the glass, you got to consider the glass that's going on top of them too. You know, you don't step into one of them lenses for under $3,000.
Right.
You know, same thing as we start talking a $14,000 lens. You know, that is a heck of an investment.
Right.
And even with my medium formats, that's taken a lot of years to, you know, that S, I wouldn't have been able to afford that unless I sold off all my Sony, the entire kit.
Sure.
So, you know, there was a lot of nice lenses and everything in there, but I already had the lenses
Right.
for the GFX because every year I've been able to add one more lens to the kit. And so now I've got a nice rounded out kit. But now I need that smaller, quicker,
Mhm.
you know, just to throw on different times of the day. So I have, you know, one crop sensor body, because
Right.
that's what it'll be. Fuji won't ever put out a
Yeah,
full
full
frame. But with the technology they got, you can shoot weddings in crop
Mhm.
sensor. You don't have to have that full frame. You know, there's a lot of people that say you have to have it.
You can
But-
second shoot for me if you have full frame equipment. Okay.
Sorry. This is this picture. I love this picture, but I wanted to also emphasize on something that I'm working on. You know, shooting film
Mhm.
is framing.
Right.
A lot of times you focus on something that's in the center,
Mhm.
and then I don't reframe. You know,
Right,
to where
yeah.
where I wanted to be, and as I review the things that you can't look at and chimp at,
Mhm.
you know, it's very interesting to me, which I think again teaches you that you can't just keep taking pictures until you get the right thing.
Right.
And I'm pretty horrible at that, but I'm getting better at taking the time to see what I
Yep.
wanted to do. Well, I can obviously tell that I focused on this in the center of the frame,
Yep.
where I wish I would have brought it down a little bit to show this, you know, the person in the front,
Mhm.
and I wish I would have brought it over a little bit, you know.
Right.
So, again, those are learning moments
Mm-hmm.
for me.
But that's the one thing I think film too. I know it did for me. Definitely made me a better shooter. It
Right.
completely changed the way I shot. Just the thought process that went through it, because you know before it was a lot of take it and move on. You know, rattle off a few and move on.
Mhm.
You know, or you look at the back of the screen and you're like, oh, that's good enough.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get home and it's a little out of focus.
Right.
and or the framing's a little bit off.
Right.
And you know, with film, you're taking that extra time. And I think by slowing down and shooting that film, you actually speed yourself up.
Right. Well,
Um,
I think it's made me a better photographer with the digital,
mhm,
you know,
yeah.
because you sit there and take the time to
Yep.
look at that.
Yep. I think that's the importance too, as you know, as photographers, as we take that time to learn new things,
Mhm.
and actually work at them.
Right.
I mean, you need to go out and you need to implement that practice, and you know, that old saying, you know, practice makes
Mhm.
perfect, or perfect practice
Right.
makes perfect. It's learning from that mistakes and being critical of your own work and saying, you know, if I would have done this, this could have been improved.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And this is the last image, you know, I really,
That was a good one.
yeah,
Mhm.
I
I like
really
that
like this one. And I love, you know, I don't know these gals as well as you guys do, you know, and it was great to have them out that night.
Mhm.
And I love how she's kind of backlit, like you were
Mhm.
talking
Yep.
about earlier when you said that, you know, I love doing that,
Mhm.
you know, if you have the equipment there.
Yep.
So, and it's kind of that way with the lights that are there.
Yep.
So, but it's very hard to get these emotions if you were just sitting waiting. You know, like that night we were sitting there and we were taking their photographs and they were posing.
Mhm.
You know, I love all of that. But there is a sense of genuine, you know, in
Absolutely.
some of these photos that I never used to shoot because
Mm-hmm.
I would always wait for them to be somewhat perfect.
Perfect and proper, or whatever
Right.
you want to call
Right.
it.
Right. And then I
Per-
think some of that is
perfect and proper or boring. If you
Right.
Ask me. I mean,
A
that's
lot
I
of
say it
times,
all
yeah.
the time.
right.
A properly lit, perfect photograph is
Mhm.
boring as hell to Tim.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, and that's why, you know, I shoot a lot of shadows. I shoot a
Mhm.
lot of, you know, because I want depth. I want
Yep.
something that is just because there's some photographers and it's properly lit. There's nothing wrong with it. And
Right.
there's a proper client for that.
Yep.
It's just not my client.
Yep.
'Cause
Well, like I said the other night, you know, the tech word would be, you know, temperism or
Yeah.
chiaroscuro.
you use all those big
And,
words and I don't know what they mean. I just know how I
but
do
it's
it. you
it's,
know?
it's art words. It's that high dramatic, you know, that deep dark shadows with them highlights. You know, it's getting rid of that distractions and everything else. You know, I think that's what the importance, and so many photographers can learn so much by looking at older painters. You know, just because photography's only been around for 200 years to look at photos, you know, and the different what do you call it? The over time, the different trends, you know, pictorialism and stuff like, I don't know what you want to call it, but different things like that. You know, look at the artists, how they treated light, and you know, Rembrandt lighting in photography. You know,
Right.
that was done by Rembrandt way back.
Well, and it was the setup of the building. It
Right,
was the,
yeah.
It was the highlights, literally the highlights.
Mhm. Well, it was the high windows.
Well, the high
he wasn't.
windows.
He wasn't.
Well,
using
yeah,
them,
yeah, it was the high window,
Yeah.
the windows.
Yeah,
which
because he
create the
had
light
he had
coming in.
windows at 45 degrees,
Yep,
and he
so
could
then it would
block
be-
out
yep.
light with
Yep.
shades and everything like that. But you know, photographers are using that same lighting that them painters were using back then. So why not look at like the master works? You know, go to museums and look at artwork, and you know, you can learn so much more about photography in general, that you don't even have to pick up a camera.
You know, you're talking about that. I just pictured you being like Cameron off Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where they're in the art museum and he's just catatonic staring at a painting. That's Jason.
That is me. That is me to a T.
I don't know who said it or what photographer said it, and I'm sure a lot of people have said it, but they said the interest is in the shadows.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the interest is drawn, you know,
Yep.
and I, for so long, I don't know, you know, like Tim, like you said, those perfectly lit, everything that you would try to achieve when you first start is like, they're boring,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, and that's what you know, and in some ways that's what the iPhone does.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, it makes it, in focus as perfectly lit, you know, and that's, and in some ways that's really good
Mhm.
because how the iPhone, you know, takes a photo of a person with the sunset behind them,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
it is amazing.
It's the
That's a lot of
technology.
post.
Yeah.
Without Phil Flash.
Right.
Mhm.
And you were like, you know, and you have people, I always, when we're at the lake in the summer, they're like, oh, take a photo. And I'm like, I can't take that photo.
Right.
You know, with my camera, I can't take it with phone.
I can, but you can't move because I'm going to do a
Right.
bracketed shot.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Which is what that technology is doing in that iPhone.
Essentially, yeah.
People are, hashtag no filter. If you knew how that was operating,
what does Tony Northrup call it? It's computative photography or something,
I don't.
where the computer's doing a whole bunch of work.
Yeah,
But so I'm partial to this subject, you know.
I've seen her before too.
Right. But we had that gel on the light, and then so she was blue, and then everything else around kind of had all those blue highlights, and I just really liked it. And of course, with that you can see my use of shadows
Mhm.
Yeah.
because I wanted to have the shadows there, which is a big way of and part of how I shoot.
Mhm.
I love
So-
it how there's movement. And I don't know if there's something moving.
So that
know,
was in
behind
front. So behind was the bumper cars.
Oh,
Mm,
So like usually the tall things were like the antennas.
I see.
right.
On it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was at a fairly low shutter speed. I was at like a 30th or a 60th. I
So you're
think.
dragging a little
It
bit.
was a little bit, and I played a lot with dragging the shutter
Mhm.
that night because there was some effects that I wanted to get.
Yep.
And then the next picture and stuff, we'll get that too. And this is just, I mean, there's a lot of negative space. It's, she's in the first third,
Mhm.
her eyes are in the top,
Yep.
right at the line of the top third. It's just,
Good balance.
Yeah.
right.
See, I love the blue. And I wouldn't shoot that.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I guess, the blue feel, the neon feel or the,
Mhm.
Right.
and I
Right.
love the reflection in her glasses.
Right. I was going to mention that too. Yeah.
That was accidental.
Come on.
But happy accidents are great,
Right,
And a lot of the street photographers, that's why they like them super wide lenses, M24s and stuff like that, because they said leave enough room for something to get in there.
Right.
And happy accidents have made a lot of amazing photos.
Yep.
Bob Ross, if anybody grew up on Bob Ross, and these are happy accidents.
So, and then Carly, there actually wasn't a ton of movement in this photo. There was a little bit because you can see it behind her.
Mhm.
So there was a slight shutter drag. And the zipper is one of my favorite things to photograph
Yeah.
because there's always that
Movement,
movement when it's going, and I really like it. Of course, then there's my typical, my shadows a little bit, and then the movement and stuff in it. And then with a lot of what my images, of course, I had that filter on that I was
Oh.
either holding on or had it
that's
screwed
right,
on.
that's right.
Yeah.
So it was a bloom. So it bloomed the hell
Yeah.
out of all the highlights.
That's cool though.
And so it just, the girls really like it because it softens their skin. I used it on one senior session this year.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, I want to try this. You game, and then if it's full sun backlit, and even if you're using fill flash, it's too much. Like it just the entire scene. And I don't know what the step of it is because there's like eighth, quarter, half.
There's three of them typically.
And so this one was fairly heavy. It was a quarter, I think, at least.
Yeah.
It's whatever I bought. I mean, it wasn't labeled. I bought it from Prism Lens Effects.
I
And
think the most popular one's the 8th.
the eighth, because eighth would be just right. And when I had bought that, I hadn't paid any attention. But if you start watching cinema or music videos and stuff, you'll start seeing all the highlights. All the lights have like a bloom on them,
Mhm.
and they just put the mist filters on.
Interesting.
So,
Very popular in video.
Huh.
but yeah, I mean, those are just the two. And I shot with a downward angle, and I do a lot. I don't do a lot from standing height.
Yeah.
A lot of my stuff is chest height or lower,
Mhm.
because I want to give them a sense of bigger than life.
Sure.
And and that's how I shoot a ton of my seniors
Yeah.
and my families too. Like I want them to have that bigger than life. And then when I'm shooting like the sports seniors, like I'm on the ground
Right.
Right.
because I'm just giving them the Superman
Yeah.
look and feel to everything. And then just hard shadows. And,
Right.
Did you see the one that I put up? Was it yesterday of Trayson?
I don't know. Who
Yeah.
So-
What was the school?
But
It was.
it was Holstein, so it was the Ridgeview. And we had his big thing was baseball.
Oh, okay.
We started and it was blowing like 40 miles an hour that
Mhm.
day. So we started at one baseball field. I'm like, is there one back in Shaler where we're going to end up? And he goes, yeah. And I go, let's do this there because it was just blowing. And so it was at dusk. The sun was down, and then I had the 8200 behind him,
Mhm.
and then I had so I was using a lot of hard light. So that was at 5:00 or 4:30.
Okay.
So fairly hard light, but I've got an 8600 right by him with a dish on. That one's got I think I had the globe on, but because I brought sandbags that day.
See, I
'Cause-
really like the framing on this. I like how the fence is in that bottom right corner, and you got that leading up, and then you got.
I
the
wasn't
arms.
even looking at the fence. I was just looking at so I was looking at the light, right?
Uh-huh.
Like that. It's a happy accident thing
Right.
again.
Yep.
But and this is part of what I learned in one of the classes with the sports stuff. Now I still shoot like the sports stuff. I shoot way different than I shoot portraits.
Mhm.
So like this is just a portrait, and I just try to go find the rattiest thing that I can find. And then it was like the last two pictures, Chris. And it was funny because I got him. I'm like, do any of your friends have really cool pictures? He's like, not really. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna
Make
we're gonna make sure that
yours.
yours are really cool. And so he really wanted the baseball toss,
Mhm.
and I go, it's hard to look cool and do it. I go, you can't. And so I was like, let's try a look away
Yeah.
one, and he just nailed it. Like he just had it, which was really cool.
I always laugh. I do some photography for this, and you'll have them throw it. They'll throw it
They'll
about
just
10
wing
feet
it.
in
They'll
the air.
wing it.
Like,
Mhm.
I'd tell him, and we tried like doing he wanted to do
Oh.
the cross. Well, then I go, but you kind of have to lob it. Well, then he was literally lobbing it. I'm like, no, you got to like with some punch, but I'm like, we got one. And I think he got one in there.
It's
Yeah.
it's a
But,
timing thing. But even
uh,
that one that we were talking about
so
earlier.
like these,
Ooh,
I
I
really
like
these.
that.
Yeah, I do
This I
too.
really liked.
See, the lighting on the fence kicks ass.
Yep.
Right. So I've
Can I
got.
say ass?
I have an 80.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Tim's in this. So I had an
Tim's been
80, I had an
PG-13
8600 with a
today.
globe, or with with this lantern, and then I actually have an 8200 with a small hard light, just like that. And then I'm using my 24-70 Tamron,
Mhm.
which is beat to hell. The lens is scratched up, it's beat up, and it flares just unbelievably.
Most people be like, "This is a garbage
I
lens."
hate it, except for like that. I finally I have two of these lenses that's on that camera right there. So that's the 28-75 2.8
Okay.
Tamron Nikon lens, right?
Sure.
And so they're super, super clean, which is fine. But so they're good for weddings, they're good for portraits. But that beat up 24-70 that I've had for 6 years is phenomenal because it flares like a mother.
It just adds
So
that
like when you
grit.
start doing all the backlight stuff and everything, and because that was on a 24-70, and then the other one was on a 70-200. So my 70-200 is clean.
Yeah.
The other one's not. And I hated that lens for the longest time until it got beat up. Now I'm like, yeah, I love that lens.
I was gonna say that first one too. That one with the fence. That one little cloud in there even adds to
that
it.
cloud was dope.
Yeah.
I was happy that cloud was there.
Yep.
Like it had to go by in 3 seconds because that wind, it was blowing like
blowing.
40 miles an hour.
It's in the
that day.
perfect spot. Like it just helps balance that image, and I like that.
It was just cool to make it look that good with the wind and everything else that was going
Right.
on that day. So yeah, that's my stuff. I actually changed up my senior packages for next year to where when they start wanting this stuff, it's
Yeah.
a separate add-on
Mhm.
Yeah.
because I want to do it where there's 2 or 3 lights
Right.
and I was watching some of the sports photographer stuff that do stuff for colleges and
Mhm.
major teams. And so working on the class and working on coming up with the extra few $1,000s in additional lighting because
Sure.
they'll run 6 or 7 lights on a
Yep.
single shot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
know.
it's building,
But
it's
it's more
it's
of a-
taking time. It's
Yeah.
it's the cost of that equipment.
Well, it's the time that the kid has to know that too, or whoever you're
Well,
doing
and that's
that.
it. So I made a video that I send it, and I'm like, this is your basic. So if you want, just throw a jersey on, take some photos. Okay, that fits in your 2-hour window for your senior pictures.
Right.
If you want the dynamic sports option, which is where you're in the gym and we're setting up 6 different lights and we're doing all this other stuff, or we're in the weight room, or we're in the
Mhm.
field house for football, it's an additional
Right.
cost of time.
Right.
Mhm.
And then you have the images because they get a set amount of images that they can get
Right.
now that I say that I'm going to stick to.
right. Kind
But-
of like our weddings.
right. So they get a set amount of images that they can apply some of those, because those they're a different grade, so they're a little more Photoshop. And Lightroom has changed enough things, especially with their latest update,
Right. Yeah.
that you can do a lot more stuff in Lightroom without having to jump into Photoshop.
Photoshop.
Mhm.
The new update's pretty cool.
Not that I was using them options in Photoshop, but it's nice to have them
Right.
options available.
Well,
now.
mainly it's just the cleanup.
Mhm.
A lot of the cleanup.
So
So
is
the
it-
content
I,
aware
see,
stuff.
I haven't
So-
used Lightroom for
so
probably 4 or
Lightroom
5
now
years.
has content aware fill.
Oh, really?
They just
Wow.
Yeah, so like that eliminates a lot of, now I still have to use Photoshop for my like
Frequency
frequency
separation,
separation,
Right.
which is only on some. It's when people do like the executive headshots, it gets
Mhm.
frequency separated, so they still have texture. I don't just do like the super soft no texture thing, crank the clarity down.
Where you can look at it and you're like, this looks like somebody took like
Right.
a butter knife and just
Yeah,
took
just-
everything off of
but-
it.
So that'll just speed up some things. And I can't remember who I was talking to. Was it you that said something about some of the programs that'll go in and clean up I can't remember.
I don't think that was me.
It was somebody. And I said, well, like I have Luminar. Which it's supposed to go in and take
Mhm.
care of it. It's just,
I think we talk about
it's-
it.
I have
on
it. I
occasion.
don't use it. Like I've
Right.
had Alienware, which was you just buy it once.
Right.
Mhm.
But the contrast is way different on the photos that come out of it, no matter how you set it. So it
Mhm.
just gets a little funky for me.
So, and something that I wanted to, I heard this on a chat room that I didn't hear it, I read it, but the other day. So with the GFX system, and you probably don't run into with the 100, but with the 50, I get a lot of murraying.
Hmm.
I run into a ton of murraying on clothing when I
right.
do a headshot.
Right.
And I've also seen it on a moray on packaging because it has a dot in it.
Right.
That the package will moray, and I don't see it
Mm-hmm.
until after I get after I'm too far down the line.
Right.
So it was very interesting to me. So if I change the focal plane of the camera, so lots of times if I move farther back
Mm-hmm.
or move closer, it changes that pattern or moray, or it goes away, or it doesn't usually always go away. But
Mhm.
something that I just learned through this chat room is I usually shoot product around f11,
Okay.
and they say go to f16 or f22,
Really?
and that makes that smaller aperture then cuts down on the moray. And I tried it on a suit that I knew would moray,
Mm-hmm.
and it sure did.
Wow.
Now you have to have the power in the
That's
flash.
a lot of
Right.
light.
That
You're
is.
adding a lot of light.
That is a lot
There
of light.
is a.
See, Capture One has a moraying feature.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Lightroom has a slider somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't run into it too often.
Man, it's
I
constant.
think there is.
It
There's
is
some sort of
constant.
slider in there.
I
for that.
haven't used it, but it rings a bell.
Yeah, because
But
Capture One supposedly it does, and it just does a absolute terrible job. I mean, from what I've seen.
Are with your product stuff? Are you shooting tethered or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can
And
see it then. when
You can see it, and it'll be it'll be a halo or something like that. But
Mhm.
I see it mainly on boxes, that have a pattern,
Right,
that
yeah.
have that pattern.
Right.
It has a dot, not just the dot pattern from being printed. It has a design of being dots,
Hmm.
and it's a huge, huge problem. So, and I've seen it in suits and men's suits a lot, and it's very hard. And again, it'll be a lot of light to push
Right,
on F16 or F22 at that instance. But I wondered if it would probably be beneficial to get rid of it. You could probably up your ISO a little bit, to help that too. But
What type of ISO are you shooting at typically when you're
normally 100,
Okay.
or
You're shooting
whatever the lowest.
super low.
Yeah. And I've done some tests on that too. And, the thing that bothers me about the GFX system too is how close I can get, the close focusing.
Mhm.
And so I actually bought an adapt, the extension ring.
Yep, the extension tubes.
And
I know we talked about this a little bit.
And
So
I
I've
bought the smaller extension tube, and I don't know which one that is. It's the smaller one, but on the 45 to 100 is probably the best I've seen that lens. And I've tried it on about everything, because it's really terrible when you can't get close enough to what you want to do.
especially with you with doing the product
Right.
side of
and
things.
you're thinking like I'm forever away.
Mhm.
And
We
Right.
run into that same thing shooting rings, or
Yeah.
I'm
I end up doing. I
Stretching.
end up
I
doing,
kudos to Tim
can't get
for
close
mentioning
enough.
that cone, because I ordered them the next day and I shot things that I could
We haven't
never
even
shoot
used 'em.
before.
yeah, it's
We haven't even used it. We just haven't had the time.
Yeah,
right?
But I they're
They're
unbelievable.
working
Oh,
great.
they're really awesome.
So when you when I shoot, there's fishing bait that I shoot that have a silver or chrome or brass,
It's going to reflect everything,
Mhm.
coating
spinner.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, it's a spinner. It's something that spins in the water that is
Mhm.
reflecting light. It's almost unbelievable to trying to hide my camera.
Oh, right.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the problem, is hiding the
And
camera.
that
It's
$100
unbelievable.
just saved
Yeah,
a ton
it's
of
just
work.
literally there was 275 baits that I had to shoot that were a nightmare. I had to set up 2 soft boxes that were smashed, and then I had to have the lens through the middle of the soft boxes, and then tape the whole, your ring, your flare ring or whatever.
Mhm.
I had taped white tape on that.
Okay.
But you still had this black dot where the lens was.
Uh-huh.
And it was unbelievable. And I had one and I tested it with this the Taylor's ring, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Because
Yeah.
it would have cut
It just-
days.
Right.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to. So, are you shooting it on a white bottom?
Yes,
See, and that's what we just haven't. Like, I bought them, and we had every intention of going up to the studio and trying some stuff
it,
out.
and we
Yeah.
just never.
And
got
then we
around to
just-
it.
So I'm really
You
kind
gotta-
of excited
you gotta try these
for
you know,
December,
so-
like
so a
December,
great to
January, and
try some
February
new
Yeah.
things.
to try some things because
Yeah.
we just have not.
because anything
had the
chrome,
time.
anything chrome or brass or
Well,
really
and I
just-
don't have a ton of products, but it's just I like to have stuff for when I need it.
Yeah.
Because I don't,
$100.
for as cheap as it was, and like I was kind of like I like his education, his free content on YouTube.
right.
I am totally willing to spend $100
Yeah.
to buy the product to
Mhm.
have him continue to
Right.
because I learned things from him.
Yeah.
Peter Colson, I learned so much lighting stuff
Yep.
just from Peter Colson,
Absolutely. Yeah. I like.
yeah,
I like
with-
him.
with-
and,
and he was doing like garage lighting.
Mhm.
Like he's doing this thing with like small spaces, and then he's going through this guy's garage, and this guy's like, I've never tried that.
Mhm.
He's like, you just got to bring your model closer to the door.
Right.
You can just watch the light get better and watch it get worse, and it starts going. And I'm like, I've learned feathering
Mhm.
just from that stuff, and I always laugh because I'm like, YouTube is a wealth of knowledge to an extent,
Mhm.
and then you have to invest.
You've got
Right.
the free
Right.
knowledge and you got the paid knowledge.
Yeah.
The free knowledge will get you close. That paid knowledge, like it's hard to replace. Like,
Right.
and that's investing in yourself, not only on equipment, but is taking that next step and constantly being improving.
Well, someday when you can all see my classes online.
There you go.
Well, I actually it's a plan.
Mhm.
I have a copywriter that's going to help. And Melanie goes, "You are the worst teacher in the world." But I'm like, if it's virtual and I
Right.
have somebody to help me write,
Yeah.
because honestly, no matter how good you are as a photographer, you have a ceiling.
Mhm.
But education is where you make your money. Now, here's the other thing, and some of this we have all learned, especially just being together, is like not everybody wants to teach everybody how to do what they do, right?
Mhm.
Most people aren't going to put in the work to get the results that you get or you get
Sure.
or you
Correct.
get.
100% agree.
You
with
know, so like the amount of shots that Derek takes to get the shots that he posts, I'm just like, I do not want to go through 14,000 images.
I don't either. I'm getting
Right?
better at reducing
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And then like, it's just all that stuff. And and it's still, there's still aspects of like, so Jason and I know way too much about each other's process.
Mhm.
There's
There's nothing. we
there's
don't
no
share with
contract
each other.
between Jason and I.
Mhm.
Sure.
So like, it's when we started like this thing, it's like, well, I'm like, I'm going to have to bury him if he does anything, you know, but I mean, in all honesty, I just knew that there's some people you just know that you can trust until, I mean, I guess if something happens, but, and I actually had this conversation with somebody else and they said, how do you know? And I'm like, you either do or, and it was because they had one of the people that worked for them leave and then try taking their customers. So, and I said, I understand it. I said, I've signed NDAs or not NDAs, but like non-competes. I go, they're really hard to actually enforce, but sometimes you just got to trust. And it took me a lot of years, but Jason shared me his files and I shared Jason my files, and this is my preset and here's my computer. And, but there's aspects that he's really good at and there's aspects that I'm really good at. So we work well together,
right?
But it's still my business.
Sure.
Cause I'm still of the belief that the only ship guaranteed to sink is a partnership.
Sure.
There's outliers to that, and you're one, right? But there's a lot of times that it just doesn't work. You got to have two people that are willing to just grind.
Right. Well, that's the way I find it a lot of times. When you own your own business, you don't work 8 to 5.
Right.
You're working all the time. There was 2 things that I told when Joe and I always said Joe and I were engaged.
Right.
We had a courtship for about 4 years and went through a lot of things and where you don't take a salary home, or there are lots of times where you didn't take hardly anything, but I wanted this business to succeed. So whatever that takes. And there was another thing that I said, when somebody calls this number, and it's hard, but I want them to talk to a person. I don't want them to be. And I said, and we've always talked, how big do you want to grow? I said, you can only grow so big. And then I guess that's about how, if your customer service is lacking, there's a problem.
Right.
And that's probably one of the biggest things, that I always concerned about is customer service. And Joe and I think after that 4 years, we went through a lot of highs and lows, and, and it is, my grandfather, who had a business partner, he said, always make sure somebody's 51
right,
and somebody's 49. And, my wife says I'm too trusting of a person, but I said, well, if that person's out there and they're trying to screw you, obviously they either need it more than you do, or there's probably not a person you want to be around.
Right.
So,
yep.
But
craziness.
Yeah. Like the one quote that I like is, if you have to tell them, what is it like to pick up a shovel, that's not the person you need to be building with.
Right.
And, they just pick up the ball and they run with it.
Right.
And, that goes into the give and take. And, I think when it comes to photography and the way that we do things, like there isn't much we don't share about each other.
No.
It's pretty much an open book, and it's, hey, I think you need to work on this, or I really like what you're doing with this.
Right.
And, but like we've talked before, it's that competitive nature.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't want to see that other person fail.
Right.
Because if you do better or if I do better, it's opening up other opportunities for us both.
Right. I think our biggest thing, like you and I, is how we light things differently. You like to light a room and I like to light a scene.
Yep.
And that's just like, okay, if you're on my project, we need to light the scene. If you're on yours, you can light the room. And because sometimes you just can't light a room, and then there's other aspects that, I'll miss that he'll bring up. People like, hey, check this out, or vice versa. So we kind of build on each other, and Jason, we spend way too much time together.
We spend a lot of time together.
We vacation together, for Christ's sake. It's he's, ask Melanie, he's my boyfriend. But that was always the joke, because there's Tim and Jason. They're just gonna,
Well, I know I'm with Joe more than I'm with anybody in my family.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where, he knows how to take me when I get all flustered and pissed off, and because it happens, and I laugh because like Alex the other day was like, dude, you need to chill. I was like, this is the first time you've been with me. I'm like, the ceremony is in 5 minutes. I'm making sure the audio's running, that the cameras are ready, everything's set. And I'm like, he's like, oh no, you need to calm down. And I said, no, because I deliver a certain amount of quality to every client. and I'll be damned if I'm not going to.
Yep.
So, we have built the business that we have based on what we deliver,
Mhm.
and I don't want to go backwards
Right.
because there's too many that, that don't deliver what we do, and they're cheaper and everything else. So if they're going to spend the money and have
Yeah.
what we offer, I need to make sure that I deliver. And it's the same thing like those CLX lights, right?
Yeah.
So, and I always tell people, because they will come up to me, do you really need those bright lights on? I said, well, they make them look really good and it pisses you off. I'm sorry.
Right.
But
Well,
I'm paid for a certain level of production,
Mhm.
and I'm going to give it to them.
Well, even at the strobe that I had, that one light, I just had 180, 200 there. And, the bartender came up, does that light really make that much of a difference? And I'm like, yeah, it's the difference between getting a photo and not getting a photo.
Seeing them
Because
or
you
not seeing
you
them.
killed all the lights in here. There is no light. Like
Right.
there's the DJ's not even running lights right now. And
venues and their damn lighting.
Mhm.
That's a whole nother
right.
subject.
Yep.
But we are running out of memory card space. We are running out.
Yeah, things are
batteries
going to start
good.
dying.
Yeah,
pretty
because we got
quick
like
and-
15 minutes on each
Yeah.
camera, and so we have.
Well, I appreciate
Yeah, absolutely.
the effort.
Yeah.
It's
No, this
awesome.
was good.
This
This was
was
great
good.
because we haven't been together like legit in here since like January,
Yeah,
February.
January. It was last January
Really?
because it was my birthday.
It
Because
was a
then we
long time
we
ago.
talked about because Chris bought pizza for my
Yeah.
birthday,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, we need to do that again, so that way, we
And
can
we-
get some pizza
yeah.
bought for him,
Yeah.
and we just never got together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we wandered around the fair for a few
Well,
hours
and-
together.
And Derek's going to shoot some film, and we'll have
Yeah,
a
we
night
got,
of, we'll have come back and we'll have
We'll have
another.
comedy night, right? Yeah.
Hey.
Throw those
I,
up
I
there.
shot a roll once, and it's still
it's
undeveloped.
still like I want Tim to develop that role, because that's part of the process.
Yeah.
To me, that's part of the process. And that's where you learn, a little bit more. when it
Well,
comes to film.
and that's what I'll say. If you guys, I'll provide everything here for developing. If you guys shoot black and white,
Mhm. Yeah.
I got some Rodinol, and I
Heck
don't know,
yeah,
we'll try that.
yeah.
I think there's a camera sitting at my house with film in it too. That you've the medium format that's sitting on the shelf.
I think so because I loaded it up and I think I said, "Here, Tim,
It's
take
on the
this."
shelf.
So
It's on the shelf. We've been busy.
How
Anyway,
do I hook my 400 to this?
right. Yeah, right. So, but well, with that, we are out. I am Tim,
I'm Jason.
and that is
Chris.
and
Derek.
peace out, everybody. It's good seeing everybody.
ya.
Thanks for coming.